Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now. What's happening in Cleveland right now goes way beyond just losing football games. We're talking about potential sabotage, a possible smear campaign, and coaching decisions that make absolutely no sense when you actually break down the numbers. Kevin Stefanski and offensive coordinator Tommy Rees are in serious trouble, and the evidence of what they're doing to Shedeur Sanders is right there in black and white for anyone willing to look at it. I'm about to expose something that's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about how the Cleveland Browns are handling their rookie quarterback. And trust me, once you see these numbers, you're not going to be able to unsee them. This is deeper than bad coaching. This looks like intentional sabotage, and I've got the receipts to prove it. Let me start by saying what needs to be said right up front. Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees are running a smear campaign against Shedeur Sanders. I know that's a strong statement. I know some people are going to say I'm reaching or being dramatic, but I'm about to lay out the facts and let you decide for yourself. Today we're supposed to get the game plan from Kevin Stefanski regarding the upcoming matchup against the Tennessee Titans. Shedeur is going to be facing off against Cam Ward, so there's some history there that we'll dive into later this week. But right now, we need to talk about the play calling from Tommy Rees, because what's happening is absolutely inexcusable. For those who don't know, Kevin Stefanski lost his play calling duties a few weeks ago. Ever since then, Tommy Rees has been the guy making all the decisions in the play calling department. And what has Tommy Rees done with that responsibility? He's completely changed the offensive philosophy the moment Shedeur Sanders became the starting quarterback. I'm about to show you the numbers, and these numbers don't lie. There's a clear pattern here, and that pattern looks a whole lot like they're setting Shedeur up to fail. Before we get into the statistical breakdown that's going to blow your mind, let's talk about Shedeur's attitude through all of this. We've heard Shedeur time after time again in interviews and press conferences saying the same thing. He's just happy to be playing. The young man is humble. He's not trying to rock the boat or mess up his opportunity. Shedeur just played an entire game with no turnovers. Let me repeat that because apparently nobody wants to talk about it. 0 turnovers. He went 16 of 25 for 149 yards and 1 touchdown with no interceptions and no fumbles. No turnovers at all. Now that 16 of 25 completion rate is solid, but it's that 25 number that has me scratching my head. 25 pass attempts. The Browns only let Shedeur throw the ball 25 times in that game. Now let me show you something that's going to make your blood boil if you're a Shedeur Sanders fan or just someone who believes in fair treatment. I went back and looked at Dillon Gabriel's games, and what I found is absolutely damning evidence of a completely different offensive approach. Let's start with the New England Patriots game when Dillon Gabriel was the starter. In that game, Dillon went 21 of 35 for 156 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He threw the ball 35 times. That's 10 more attempts than Shedeur got. Now, I know every game is different schemes, different game scripts, different situations. But stay with me because the pattern gets even more obvious. Let's look at the Jets game. Dillon Gabriel went 17 of 32 for 167 yards. He threw the ball 32 times in that game against a Jets team that was absolutely horrible. 32 attempts. And he didn't throw any interceptions in that one. But they still threw it 7 more times than they're letting Shedeur throw it. The Jets were one of the worst teams in football at that point, and the Browns still aired it out 32 times with Dillon Gabriel under center. Now let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens game where both Dillon and Shedeur played. Before Dillon got hurt in that game, they had already let him throw the ball 10 times. But here's where it gets absolutely ridiculous and where the evidence of sabotage becomes impossible to ignore. The Pittsburgh Steelers game. Dillon Gabriel went 29 of 52. Let me say that number again slowly. 52 pass attempts. Dillon Gabriel attempted 52 passes in one game against the Steelers. 52 times they trusted him to drop back and throw the football. Do you see what's happening here? Do you see the massive discrepancy? When Dillon Gabriel was the quarterback, they had no problem letting him throw the ball 32 times, 35 times, even 52 times in a single game. But the moment Shedeur Sanders becomes the starter, suddenly the Browns turn into a run-first, conservative offense that barely wants to throw the ball at all. If that's not sabotage, if that's not intentionally limiting what Shedeur can do, then I don't know what is. In the Raiders game, Shedeur's first start, they threw the ball 20 times. 20 attempts. 20. And then, in the most recent game, they threw it 25 times. They only increased his pass attempts by 5 from one start to the next. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel had a game where they let him throw 52 times. The math doesn't math. The numbers don't add up. And the only logical conclusion is that Tommy Rees and Kevin Stefanski are intentionally calling a different offense for Shedeur than they called for Dillon. Let me break down some more numbers that prove this point. In the most recent game, the Browns had a total of 253 yards of offense. You know how many yards the 49ers had? 252, one less yard than Cleveland. But the 49ers won by 26 points. How is that possible? How do you have essentially the same total yardage and lose by 26 points? Let me tell you how. The 49ers had 161 passing yards. The Browns only had 115 passing yards. And the only reason they even got that many is because Shedeur made plays looking downfield when he actually got the chance to throw. The Browns averaged more yards per carry on the ground than the 49ers because they ran the ball constantly. Run, 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 run. First down run, second down run, third down run. They were 3 for 11 on third down conversions. You know why? Because they kept running the ball in predictable situations. The 49ers knew exactly what was coming. Every defense in the league knows what's coming when the Browns have the ball now because Tommy Rees has made the offense completely one-dimensional. I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating. These are the actual numbers, the actual statistics from real games. When Dillon Gabriel was playing, they threw the ball 52 times in a game. When Shedeur Sanders is playing, they won't even let him get to 30 attempts. That's not a difference in game plan. That's not adjusting to the opponent. That's sabotage. That's intentionally limiting your quarterback's opportunities to make plays and then blaming him when the offense doesn't produce. Now let's listen to what Kevin Stefanski had to say in his press conference after the most recent loss, because his answers are incredibly revealing about the dysfunction happening in Cleveland right now. When asked about the fourth down decision where they went for it from their own 33-yard line, Stefanski said he felt good about it, that there's always risk when you go for it in those situations. But if you feel good about the plays and the players, you should feel good about converting. That sounds reasonable on the surface, but then a reporter asked why they went for a quarterback sneak instead of using their jumbo package and wildcat formation that had been working. Stefanski's answer? He felt good about the call. They didn't execute. That's on him. He'll get it fixed. But here's the problem. When you're not giving your quarterback enough opportunities to throw the ball, when you're running this ultra-conservative offense, and then you make aggressive decisions on fourth down that don't work, you can't have it both ways. Either you trust your offense or you don't. Either you believe in your quarterback or you don't. The Browns coaching staff seems to want to have their cake and eat it too, playing conservative most of the game but then making aggressive calls in situations that don't make sense. A reporter asked Stefanski directly whether Shedeur built on his first start from the previous week. Stefanski's response was classic coach speak. He said he'd have to look at it, that Shedeur is battling like all their guys are battling, that there are plays Shedeur wants back, but they'll look at it and correct him. Then the reporter asked the most important question. Will you start him next week? Stefanski said yes. But when pressed about whether this means Shedeur is the guy going forward or if they're still taking it week by week, Stefanski refused to commit. He said he's not going to get into all that, just that everyone has to play better. That non-answer tells you everything you need to know about how the Browns view Shedeur Sanders. They're not committed to him. They're not building around him. They're not giving him the full support and resources he needs to develop and succeed. They're keeping their options open, staying non-committal, which creates an environment of uncertainty that makes it nearly impossible for a young quarterback to thrive. One of the few positive moments in the press conference came when a reporter asked about Shedeur's touchdown throw. Stefanski actually praised it, saying it was really well executed, that it was a good call by Tommy Rees in that situation. He said they felt really strongly about that play and had been waiting to call it for a couple weeks. So they have plays designed for Shedeur that they believe in, plays they've been waiting weeks to call, but they're only throwing the ball 20 to 25 times per game. That makes no sense. If you have plays you believe in, If you have concepts you think will work, why aren't you calling more of them? Why aren't you giving your quarterback more opportunities? The frustration in that press conference was palpable. When a reporter asked about the team having a losing season and how disappointing that is, Stefanski gave a generic answer about how losing is always disappointing and frustrating, that he wants to put his players in position to succeed. But Kevin, you're not putting Shedeur in position to succeed. You're doing the opposite. You're limiting his opportunities, handcuffing the offense, and then acting surprised when the results aren't good. A reporter asked about offensive adjustments in the second half because nothing seemed to be working. Stefanski's response? They just have to find a way to stay on the field. He thought there were some good things happening in the run game, but not enough. Not enough? You ran the ball constantly and only averaged enough to get beaten by 26 points by a team that had basically the same total yardage. Maybe, just maybe, the problem is that you're running too much and not letting your quarterback throw enough. When pressed about whether the wind made it difficult to throw, Stefanski admitted it was definitely a factor going in one direction. So you knew it was tough conditions for throwing the ball, and your response was to throw even less? Shouldn't the response be to design plays that account for the wind? To give your quarterback opportunities in areas of the field where the wind isn't as much of a factor? Instead, they just abandoned the passing game almost entirely. Here's what's really happening in Cleveland, and I'm going to spell it out clearly. Kevin Stefanski lost his play-calling duties, and that was a blow to his ego and his authority. Tommy Rees was brought in, and there's speculation that Rees has his own agenda, possibly wanting Dillon Gabriel to succeed because of their previous connection. Whether that's true or not, the numbers show a clear bias in how the offense has been called depending on who the quarterback is. When Dillon Gabriel was playing, they opened up the playbook. They gave him 40-50 attempts per game. They trusted him to win games with his arm. Did it work? Not really. Dillon threw interceptions, the offense sputtered, and the team kept losing. But they gave him every opportunity to prove himself. Now Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback, and suddenly it's run, check down, run. They've completely changed the offensive philosophy, and it's not because Shedeur can't throw. We saw him in college. We know he has arm talent. We know he can make throws. They're just not giving him the chance. This looks like sabotage because what other explanation makes sense? If you truly believed Shedeur Sanders was your franchise quarterback of the future, you would be doing everything possible to develop him, to give him reps, to let him throw the ball and learn from his mistakes. Instead, they're protecting him like he's fragile, like they don't trust him, like they're trying to minimize his impact on games. And when you minimize your quarterback's impact, guess what happens? Your offense becomes predictable and ineffective. The smear campaign aspect comes from how this will be perceived publicly. When the Browns continue to lose with Shedeur as the starter, people who don't look deeper than the surface stats are going to blame him. They're going to say he couldn't get it done, that he wasn't ready for the NFL, that he's not the answer. But the reality is that he was never given a fair chance. He was set up to fail by a coaching staff that either doesn't believe in him or has some other agenda we're not privy to. Jerry Jeudy already told us that Shedeur hasn't been getting reps in practice. Now we can see from the game statistics that Shedeur isn't getting attempts during games either. How is a quarterback supposed to develop, supposed to build chemistry with his receivers, supposed to learn to read NFL defenses when he's only throwing 25 times per game, and most of those are safe, short throws that gain minimal yardage? The comparison to Dillon Gabriel is the smoking gun here. 52 attempts in one game for Dillon, 25 attempts for Shedeur. That's not game script, that's not strategy, that's deliberate. That's a conscious decision to limit one quarterback while giving another quarterback every possible opportunity. And the results speak for themselves. The offense was terrible with Dillon throwing 50 times, and it's terrible with Shedeur throwing 25 times. So clearly the problem isn't the quarterback. The problem is the play calling, the scheme, the overall offensive philosophy that doesn't seem to have any coherent identity. Tommy Rees is in trouble because these numbers are going to come out. People are going to start asking why Shedeur is being treated so differently than Dillon was treated. Kevin Stefanski is in trouble because as the head coach, the buck stops with him. He's responsible for the offensive philosophy even if he's not calling plays anymore. He's responsible for making sure his coordinator is putting the team in the best position to win. And right now, that's clearly not happening. The Browns have completely wasted Shedeur's first few starts by refusing to actually let him play quarterback. They've turned him into a game manager, a caretaker, someone who's just supposed to hand the ball off and not make mistakes. That's not developing a franchise quarterback. That's trying not to lose rather than trying to win. And in the NFL, when you play not to lose, you usually end up losing anyway. What needs to happen moving forward is simple. The Browns need to commit to Shedeur Sanders as their starting quarterback for the rest of the season. They need to actually open up the playbook and let him throw the ball 35 to 40 times per game like they did with Dylan. They need to design plays that put him in position to succeed, that use his arm talent and his ability to throw downfield. And they need to accept that there will be growing pains, mistakes, and learning moments. But that's part of the development process. If the Browns aren't willing to do that, if they're going to continue with this conservative, run-heavy approach that's clearly not working, then they need to be honest about it. Tell everyone that you're not actually evaluating Shedeur as your potential franchise quarterback, that you're just playing out the string on a lost season. At least then everyone would know where they stand instead of this confusing mixed message approach where they say Shedeur is the starter, but don't actually give him the tools to succeed. The evidence is clear. The numbers don't lie. Dylan Gabriel got 52 pass attempts in a game. Shedeur Sanders is getting 20 to 25. That's not fair evaluation. That's not equal opportunity. That's sabotage, whether intentional or not. And Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees need to answer for why this massive discrepancy exists and what they're going to do to fix it going forward. Cleveland fans deserve better than this. Shedeur Sanders deserves better than this. The entire organization deserves better than the dysfunction and confusion that's plagued this season. It's time for the Browns to make a real commitment one way or the other. Either go all in on Shedeur and actually give him a chance to prove himself, or move in a different direction and stop wasting everyone's time. But this half-measure approach where they kind of support him but not really, where they say he's the starter but don't call plays like he's the starter, that has to end. It's not fair to anyone involved, and it's destroying what little credibility this coaching staff has left. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about these numbers. Is this sabotage of Shedeur Sanders, or am I reading too much into it? Do you think Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees are intentionally limiting him, or is there some other explanation? I want to hear all your thoughts on this situation. Make sure you smash that like button if you found this breakdown valuable, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates on this developing story. I've got more Cleveland Browns content coming your way later today. Until next time, shake those haters off and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.